1.02, pledge to the flag. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Moving on to 1.03, roll call.
Jason Decker,
Here.
Mary Lee Hall,
Here.
Samantha Hall,
Here.
William Hall,
Here.
Jeremy Hash, Jennifer Henkel, Nathan Henkel,
Here.
Lisa Stoller,
Here.
Joseph Wilson.
Here.
Thank you.
Well, I'm glad I have a paper copy because my computer just went stupid. Okay, moving on to 1.02, procedure for public comment. I don't see anyone, so I'm assuming we do not have public comment. Moving on to 3.01, update and recommendation on potential skylight and standing seam roof projects. Mr. Buffington.
Hi, good evening. I'd like to give you an update on the skylight and standing seam metal roof projects. With me tonight is Damian Spar, project executive from SiteLogic. We'll walk through, spend the next few minutes talking through an update for potential addendum to our current project. You'll also see, on our agenda there, we'll hit into future projects, but I think we'll go to the other agenda item at that point. But let me jump into that a little bit. So the board will recall that we've been talking about adding an addendum to the project to include some potential adjacent work at Shrewsbury with the standing seam metal roofs, skylights, and greenhouse. So I'll walk you through with that, and we've broken these out into different categories of coating skylights that are not in the standing seam roof, which is the red, the blue coating standing seam, which is with skylights, and then the green and the orange, the green being the greenhouse, and the orange overhangs at Shrewsbury. So if you look at the roof plan, you'll notice these colors coordinate with what we just talked about with skylights, and these skylights here are actually over top interior classrooms, so it's important for them because that's how they get daylight. They don't have exterior windows. And then the blue, if you can picture Shrewsbury, this is the bus canopy. That canopy goes out over the top of the roof, and this is the parent drop-off in the back. And over here is the library. And then the green is the greenhouse. So we looked at these items, and as I had mentioned, it's important it's one of the options that we looked at was potentially eliminating the skylights. Was that cost effective? And it was not cost effective, as well as it's important to have some of that interior, that those interior spaces have the daylight. So you can see some pictures here. Down here, that's actually a classroom, and the skylight's letting in the light. And then there's also some of those skylights within the hallways where there was no windows. The metal roof, if you've been by Shrewsbury, obviously you can see the blue metal roof that's incorporated in with some of these skylights. The picture there you can see as part of the main canopy, as well as the library, and that interior shot is the main lobby. So SiteLogic has been working, pulling pricing together. We advertised, the board will recall, we advertised for $1 million, knowing that we weren't going to come back with a project of that size. Our initial estimate, as you can see on the screen there, was $765,000. Continued to refine scope, continued to work with subcontractors with eventual recommendation that we want to let you know about tonight of $712,275 for a project. And what that project we're recommending would be a coating, a clear glaze over the skylights, as well as a finish on the standing seam metal roof. That would have a 10-year, you can see on the slide, it notes there's 2 different 10-year warranties that would go along with that project, as well as SiteLogic worked with several subcontractors, and the subcontractor that they're recommending is a local subcontractor, Raintree Services, out of Jacobus, Pennsylvania. So why are we recommending this project? Certainly, aesthetics is one reason, but more importantly, water infiltration with skylights, keeping water out of the building, as well as it's adjacent to the work that we're already doing. So it makes sense to do this work along with the work this summer. So if we would decide to move ahead with this work, we could do it this summer. We've already issued, in case we would need it, a 10-day notice. On the board agenda Thursday night would be for your consideration this project. And if the board elects to move forward, this project would be built in alongside the current project that's going to happen this summer. So I know threw a lot at you there with these skylights and greenhouse and standing seam, but want to pause, just for questions that we may have for myself or Mr. Spar.
Just for clarification for everyone, the orange section, those small roofs, they're getting coated also.
Yes,
Just so that, and that's included in that price.
it is.
So all of the standing seam, because they're also standing seam, all the standing seams getting coated and all of the skylights. Does anyone else have questions?
So the warranty is for 10 years. What's the actual life expectancy of the glaze? Is it?
Yeah, it'll be longer than that, but you want to speak to that a little bit?
I always like to liken what we're trying to do here with when we take roofs and we coat roofs. Years ago, we didn't get to coat roofs the way we do now. And now we get to extend the life of our asset by going out to 10 years, even though the life expectancy is longer than 10 years. When we talk to these subcontractors and to the manufacturers, they talk about 10 to 15 years. When you get to that 10 years, you really look hard at doing it then so that you can extend it, so that you're kind of keeping that gap narrow. I think you're going to see the life of this go out in the 10 to 15 year range beyond that warranty. It's just, do you want to take it out again at that point in 10 years? And I like to always look at that when I'm looking at roofs or anything like this, because it's just so much more cost effective to extend the life of the warranty than to rip something off and replace it. So I think you should be thinking 10 to 15 years for the life.
If I recall from the discussion about the current state of the roof, of the seams, they are currently in a condition where they can be coated,
Yes.
And that can deal with the problems. If they deteriorate further, we could reach a situation where they can no longer be coated. And so that's what you want to avoid.
That's the balance.
When you start to get to that 10-year time frame is you're starting to play a little bit of a game where if we push it a little bit longer, maybe we can get away with that and then do the coating in 2 years. But if the deterioration progresses to a certain point, then you lose the option of coating.
Yeah. And you lose the option of coating and getting the warranty.
Yes.
Because it's just so you can keep coating it, but you're really looking for that warranty.
Well, and I assume at a certain point, coating is not even going to be effective.
And at a certain point it is.
Larger gaps.
Right.
Yeah.
You kind of take the asset to its furthest extension of life and then you replace it. But you're in a good spot here for what we're doing with these two items to go out 10 years and then have the option to go 20, which is super.
Well, then it would be my understanding that really that second coating would be a desire to get the standing seam and the skylights basically to the end of the rubber roof we're putting on. So that
Yes.
we've sort of drawn that out all the way to the end of.
Trying to draw it out all the way in,
Second
so, yes, so that you really extend the life of that whole envelope system at the roof level.
So that everything roof-related wears out at the same time, basically.
Essentially what you're trying to
Doing
achieve,
replacement,
right?
Yeah.
So you're not having to do piecemeal.
With your second coating, you're trying to reach out that to the end of
Yeah.
the life of the rubber roof.
Exactly right.
What would be a bigger adversary to the coating? Would it be UV or weather?
I think they do two different things, but effectively they both wear. I don't know which wears faster. I think that they both, the coating itself wears down after UV's on it for a while, just like it wears down with rain and snow and that little bit of friction from snow being on it. And that's why they only put you've got a certain thickness that you can put on it. And I can't tell you which one wears down faster. I would think that the coating would wear down a little bit faster because I think that in terms of wear for weather protection, because I think that they've gotten these coatings to a place now where they're protected relatively well for UVs, but I would suspect that you would see concern from where the coating's worn down and stuff like that over years of effectively erosion. More so than UV. UV is gonna change the finish look, but it's not gonna cause a leak. The coating being worn down and then having water stand there or infiltrate a little bit, it's gonna cause your leak.
Yeah, I was just trying to understand the variables on lifespan, so that's.
I would, that would be my concern, that you'd see that, the wearing down of the coating and then water infiltration first versus UV, which would probably change the color faster than it would actually change anything about water infiltration.
Certainly, one of the things we would do, much like we do with the flat roofs, we're going to be monitoring this, and just like we have warranties with our flat roofs, if we start to notice anything, getting the manufacturer out, getting the contractors out to take care of something that may be wearing faster than it should be. So we would certainly incorporate that into the plans we already have with all our roofs.
I have a question, please. I know we've gone over this several times before we're getting to a vote, but in our last experience, there was a lot of change orders happening. Have you seen anything that could potentially turn into an issue that would cost a lot in change orders moving forward? Or is this pretty
With-
straightforward, just glaze it and be done?
With respect to this scope, we have looked at it really hard with several contractors, and that is not at all a concern I have. In fact, I'm going to go a little further. I don't have any concern about this glazing. In fact, Mr. Buffington and I were talking about, if this gets approved by the board, having Rain Tree Services come out here with us, maybe over spring break, and start to put a mock-up coating up there just to see how colors look and things, so they can be ready to get it done and get out of the way in the summer. I don't see any issues that I'm concerned about with changes or unforeseen conditions or schedule.
Okay. Thank you. It's a lot of money.
That's a good step right there. That's a great step to have them go up there and give us a little proof of concept.
Yeah.
Before we're, knee deep in it.
Yeah, I don't want to make that decision in the summer. I want to see that in the spring.
Sure, right. Any other questions? Okay, moving on to 3.02. We have the presentation for our future projects.
So as the board will recall, we've been looking at future projects. We have 3 of our buildings that are over 25 years. Shrewsbury Elementary, Southern L, and Southern Middle are over 25 years since it's last been renovated or built. We hired Beers and Huffman Architecture to do a feasibility study in 2024, and that study was taken. And that study was performed with input from the district, included architect and mechanical engineer that took a look at our facilities and made recommendations. With that study, the energy savings contractor, SiteLogic, verified costs and with input from the district, tweaked prioritization. With that, we started to look at potential different options. And we'll also tonight talk about potential grant opportunities. So how did we start to look at this? So we used a tool that SiteLogic has called MySiteIQ, and at everybody's place tonight was spreadsheets full of projects that were loaded in there, prioritized, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. But so that tool was used as to be able to organize, start to plan, look at budget. Then we started to look at different scenarios, and that how, if we would want to do projects, how would we start to group these projects to do. When we looked at, again, the 3 buildings that really kind of drive our greatest needs are Shrewsbury Elementary, Southern L, and Southern Middle School. So started to drive that as we put these potential scenarios together. So in MySiteIQ, it prioritizes by several levels. The highest being immediate, or what we termed as a team urgent, as soon as we can. Lower than immediate is high. Lower than high would be moderate, then low, and then long range. So one of the scenarios that we put together or extracted from MySiteIQ was all immediate and high priority projects. You can see before us here on the slide what that yielded. The budget 2025 work would be the work that we're going to do this summer, as well as, and I believe Mr. Spar included in that number, includes if we would elect to do the skylights and standing seam. The project we just did addendum that we just talked about would be included in that $8 million number that you see there. Then for the following summer, and as Mrs. Green often points out, in school construction, you don't want to miss a summer. So we would look at the potential following summer for $30 million. But as we're looking at this, this is just one scenario we pulled out that says, okay, all the immediate, all the high, you know, we have what we already have planned, about $38 million in total. The thing we got to remember here is every year that we push out, we most likely would have to incorporate probably about 5% escalation. You know, we're ultimately not going to recommend doing $30 million of work in that year, but it's a scenario that we took a look at. Mary Lee, looked like you had a comment,
Yes,
question.
Yes, please. Now, while we're talking about dollars, what about the Public School Facility Improvement Grant Program? How are we with that? And their focus on HVAC, plumbing, heating, air, all these things. I'm seeing a lot of mechanical contracting in some of these updates. So I know that with SiteLogic, we were up for some grant applications. How are we working towards that?
Yeah, we're gonna be talking.
Is that a section? I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Beginning.
we have a slide coming up talking
Slide
about the
on that
grant.
one, yeah.
Yep,
Okay.
yep. Okay, so here's one of the first scenarios that we looked at. So then, you know, we took a scenario of using those immediate and high, but then we focused a little more and said, okay, in the budget year 26, budget 26, build 27, HVAC. We said, okay, immediate and high, including HVAC, was our biggest priority. And then in 27 and build in 28, immediate and high with electrical, mostly in the 3 buildings. Now, you'll see some other projects, some security projects are in there, and some capital improvement projects are also in there. But on the large scale, on the biggest focus, you know, here would be mechanical work in the budget 26, build in 27, and electrical work in budgeting 27. Bless you. 28. So you can see that this scenario yields about $27 million, you know, so you can see a little difference there. Now, certainly our recommendation would be that this would be a minimum that we would want to do. What's not included in this scenario are some of our other needs that, you know, are either adjacent or pretty urgent that we believe should be accomplished. So just some examples. This doesn't include all of what potentially we could include in the projects, but the board will recall at Shrewsbury Elementary, the plumbing connections. You know, to minimize that risk, it may be good to do those connections. Also at Shrewsbury, carpet replacement. You may say, why would we do carpet replacement? 2 reasons. If you do the HVAC unit, most likely the carpet's not going to butt against a unit that sits on the floor. There's probably going to be a gap there. As well as that carpet is approaching 30 years old. Couple other just examples, Southern Elementary, replacing faucets and flush valves. We did that in Shrewsbury a few years ago. The elevator upgrade is important for ADA. Again, you can see carpet replacement in Southern Elementary and Southern Middle. And another example that we placed in Southern Middle was some of the restroom work.
So Rand, can you just go back one slide real quick? So I know this is a lot of stuff, so just kind of want to summarize this slide again. We basically took the slide before and said, okay, let's chunk this out by summer and see what makes the most sense to put together. to get economies of scale and to kind of work in the same places. So that first summer, that summer of '27, which would be the budget '26, we looked at doing those classroom units and those HVAC pieces. So remember, this summer we're doing boilers, and that'll make sure the whole building can still heat up. But then the next summer, we'll look at classroom units, and that's to make sure individual classrooms can stay warm, safe, and dry. So as Randy, because sometimes I have to hear this in other terminology when I'm going through it with the gentleman. So when you pull those classroom units out, the footprint or the new unit's not gonna be the same exact size. I know when we were talking to Bill, he's like, oh, absolutely not. It'll be bigger, smaller, somewhere in between. It's just not gonna be the same size. So then you could have those spaces around the units in the classroom where we wouldn't have any carpet. So we want to make sure everybody understands these are really the minimum. And then just like we did with the Shrewsbury roof and the boilers, we're going to look at what projects make sense to do at the same time, so that when we have folks in there, we're doing it as efficiently and as effectively as we can during those summer months. And then when we get into that next summer, '28, really the emphasis there is on the electrical components in each of those 3 buildings. So I wanted to kind of pop back and just make sure everybody understood, because that's a whole lot to digest as we're going through it.
Thank you. Can I ask a generalized carpet question? So, in the past, it's just one big roll of carpet, right? But in elementary schools, are we thinking about going out to bid for this on our own? Are we thinking about, the squares that can be replaced if?
Were you talking to Mr. Hall about this?
Actually, we were talking about little Johnny on the way here, dropping a big glob of paint on the floor, and then how do we pick that up?
Yeah.
It's always little Johnny, he's got a bad rap.
Yeah, so starting at Friendship when we did that project, so commercial construction, rolled goods, rolled carpet was one of the things, but now in schools, 2x2 squares are typical. An advantage with that is you get a stain on the 2x2 square, you rip it up, you put another one down, you may have wear patterns, you can take those 2x2s up and put them down. So, most likely, we would be doing 2x2 squares.
Which sounds amazing, but is it extremely costly to do that?
Yeah, I believe cost-wise is effective.
Is it comparable?
Yeah, and there was a time that 2x2 tile, when we first started to get away, and I'm looking at Mr. Hall because I think he probably remembers some of the things I remember from our careers. In the 90s, when we first started to get away from the rolled goods, carpet tile was a little more expensive. And the carpet installer said, well, it's because we have more labor because we have to put more of these down. And as time went on and people realized, well, they don't want to have to do the hard work that comes with those long sheets of rolled goods, and all of a sudden carpet tile starts to become pretty much the same cost as rolled goods, and it depends on what the material is in each direction. You could go either higher or lower, but very competitive. And it really becomes, and the carpet's gotten so much better that you can have it in for years and put another tile in, and it doesn't look like it's a brand new tile. So there's been a lot, I hate to say it this way, but just in my career, there's been a lot of advances in carpet. So one, it's not expensive, and it's not prohibitive whatsoever. And two, the carpet tile stays in good shape, so you can actually do that, and it doesn't look like it's a new piece in an old section.
Great, thank you.
We looked at this slide. So certainly one of the things, we want to be mindful of, are potential grant opportunities. And with this work, there is the potential for that. And on the board agenda on Thursday, there is an agenda item there to consider the ability to apply for, and SiteLogic would help drive that application for $5 million for for this work. Now, there is a match, a 25% match, you know, so we would, if we would get any of that award, we would need to put a 25% match to it. But, go ahead.
Follow up to that. So what about, I know that our governor is still talking about the budget and how everything's going to go as far as school projects, but what about Plan-Con reimbursement? Will we be eligible for any of that in refurbishment and renovation, or is that you have to take off a part of the building?
There is no Plan-Con at this point. So
There's still
the
not.
facility grants are really the only thing out there. And they are good for, we talked about that, they are good for 3 years, so you wouldn't absolutely have to do it the summer of '27. Of course, you know, we have other reasons why we want to move forward with that, but it would be a couple years if the board would like to apply for that. And then the priority would be those HVAC classroom units for the second piece. And we have had some issues this winter with the extreme cold with some of those units.
And there's really no harm in applying. I believe the application fee is pretty minimal.
Oh, it's, the
$100?
fee itself is.
$100.
Is about $100.
Yeah, so it-
And the fee from us to do all of it is zero.
So the potential, you know,
And there's no knowing what we're applying for as far as what amounts?
Oh.
Or is there a minimum 500,000, isn't there?
So that's correct. There is a minimum of $500,000. What we're going to do is we're going to show them everything that's the need. So everything that's the need for budget in '26, build in '27 for that HVAC, which is right up the alley for what they want to talk about. We're going to show them that whole project. What's happened last year was commonly folks were getting 45% of what they asked for. I think even though now this year, I think this year it's up to 125 million versus where it started at 100. School districts are going to get, you know, something. They're not getting everything that they've asked for. So what we do is we make, the way we write the grant, we make the scope scalable. So we're able to use the grant one way or the other because you've got a scalable scope. It's not like, for example, if you were doing a boiler, you either do the boiler or you don't do the boiler. When you're doing something like this, you've got different pieces that you can put in and take the grant and use the grant money. The reason that we put school districts in a position the way that we're doing it this year is if somebody's giving you grant money, the sooner you use it, the more you get for your grant money, because the longer you wait, you basically get eroded by that 5% escalation every year. The other reason, and you're in a really good spot with this at Southern York County, is the grant application process and the grant review and award process is corresponding with the process that's being laid out for you year after year. So you've really gotten yourself now into a groove where you can identify, you can apply, you can kind of get ready, then you can go with whatever grant you get. It's overlaid quite nicely, and it works very well with the approach that's being recommended later in the slideshow.
Is there a maximum amount that we can apply for?
5 million.
5 million.
Of course, we're not going to get that, but
What's that?
we'd have to prove, right, what we need.
That's,
The grant.
the proving part is very easy to do. The getting part is harder to do because there's only so much to go around to all the school districts.
Sure.
So, it's, what we really do is do the best we can to tell the story of need and to show that the school district is a good steward of money. You know, you got some grant money last year, or I guess it was technically 2 years ago. That's been used. It's been used exactly the way it was intended to. There are school districts that when they have grant money and they don't use it, the state looks at you and says, well, you didn't use what we already gave you, why would we give you more today? So you're kind of in that flow and you've done well with that. And so we want to tell the good story, we want to show the need, and we want to show that the board and the community are doing a good job of upkeeping their schools and state. You need to help us because there is no Plan-Con and there is no other way.
Thank you.
So here's a schedule that shows, how we would recommend moving forward. You can see that by spring, April of 2026 of the planning year, perhaps approving to design the project, and start to build that scope of that project. And again, as you walk down through that schedule, in order to make it possible for construction of 27, this kind of outlines how we would do that, because some of these pieces of equipment, in order to get those pieces of equipment, take, many, many months to get. So we gotta plan it out so that we can complete those projects. So I know we're throwing a lot at you tonight. Just a couple next steps, on the board agenda for Thursday night. As we had mentioned, a grant resolution approval. What that allows us to do through SiteLogic is to apply for that grant. The grant is due in mid-March, so we would need to start that, soon after the board meeting in February. Also on the agenda is for GESA, Guaranteed Energy Savings Act addendum for the standing seam and the skylight coatings, as we talked about, for the $712,000 to add as an addendum that we're recommending. So that's on the February agenda. And then looking out a little bit, approval to design 2027 projects by April. We would project the schedule to stay on that course of being able to do work in the summer. Between now and then, Mrs. Green and Mr. Carrington, are going to pull together a financial plan that would show how we would bring this all together. Certainly some factors that we don't know, like the grant and things, but certainly start to put together a plan that would allow this to potentially happen if the board chooses.
Okay, so I have several questions. So I see the terminal units and its potential building controls as, from what I'm looking here, maybe the highest of the high priorities. Maybe that's a good way to put it. Because that does affect the environment in the classroom. So I would love to see instead of just seeing them as line items, trying to get a better understanding of what that would look building by building, and what components have to be, or what components should be done together. Like the unit ventilators in the building plus the building controls. Obviously, it would be easiest to see them, or probably best to see them done in conjunction with one another. I do think that there's some unknown information that we will be able to have answers to when we change the boilers, and that is the condition of the piping.
Yeah,
So that's going to have a major impact on what happens with these items.
Yeah, well, currently, the piping is not included, and correct me if I'm wrong, Damien, piping is not included in this.
It doesn't look like it, right?
No,
It just looks like it's the end unit in multiple location is the end units, and then in multiple locations, obviously because it's separate buildings, is the building controls. So I think it would be helpful for us to be able to see them building by building, and then obviously, things like when you're changing the unit out in a classroom, I think we would be foolish not to at least have an understanding of what changing those carpets is going to look like. I understand they're not included in the numbers, but it would be good for us to at least have an understanding of what that's all gonna entail. And, you know, I would, although I understand the need for these things, I would still love to see us to be able to take a similar approach as we have with the boilers, where we're biting off pieces of it, you know, and taking chunks of the pieces as we move along. And my understanding is that that would be the greatest of all of these needs, or the highest priority. If that's not the case, I'd love to have feedback that you would disagree. Well, I mean, I'm really pointing that more at Site Logic, saying, hey, you know, you're looking at these things, you're poring over these things, and if you disagree with that statement, I would love to hear feedback on what it is that you do see as being the highest of the high priorities. I mean, obviously, there's some air handling units in here, which can also, you know, be, you know, a high priority. Because then, you know, some of them are in not classroom spaces, but that doesn't necessarily mean they're not important. You know, like the air handler or the mini split in the IT building. I mean, obviously, you don't want that breaking down, because then you can cause a whole lot more damage than just a mini split. Although I want to say that Site Logic's approach to all of this has been methodical, and I appreciate that very much so. I mean, we're looking at it here on spreadsheets, but they have a whole website that you can go to where you can really break it down and get in building layouts, and I mean, it's exceptionally detailed, the work that they have put into it. So I can't imagine answering those questions is going to be that difficult, because there's been so much back work done. But I think I would really like to have a better understanding of those as to, because, I mean, as we all know, we've got, you know, budget constraints that we're fighting in now, you know? And, you know, we've got to make the best buildings, the best decisions to take care of our buildings, while also being as fiscally responsible as we can, understanding the push and pull, you know, of having the proper amount of funds to educate our kids, you know, so.
I'm so sorry, I have a question, please. So did you say that there would not be a pipe replacement associated with the boiler project?
No, that's what I said. So it has been in discussion of what condition are the lines that carry the chiller water, or the chiller glycol, and the boiler water, or the boiler glycol, to the end units. So it carries them to the end units then put the heat into the room. What shape are those pipes in? And when we have the system down this summer and we're replacing the boilers, is the perfect time to answer that question.
So
You know,
that could
because we
be
can
potentially $92,000 in savings if it's not necessary.
Well, we don't want to replace the piping if it's not
Right.
full.
It's just on here as a line item for that total.
It's not,
On
it's
page
not on
8.
here anywhere, is it?
On page 8, the second one down, replace exterior chilled water piping associated with 2026 boiler replacement.
It's a project,
Is that
but it-
something different?
It's a project, but it's not included in
Oh, okay.
recommended.
The end
recommended
unit.
work. So all these pages, literally everything that's considered as a project is listed on these pages.
This is green, so I thought that was associated with what we were doing now.
Green is projects that have already been approved or projects that we are looking to do in '25.
Right, so this
You are correct. That's exterior piping.
So this is different.
It is. So, and let me help you a little bit. So there was exterior piping, it was identified, we know that needed to be replaced. That's that section.
Yeah.
When we talk
Small.
about the piping in the building, It's the piping that's running from the boiler room within the building
Above
to
ceilings.
these units above the ceilings. And what our intention is, and this came out, I think the first time that we got to meet with Mr. Hall with the administration was, this summer, in each building, we're gonna be able to selectively go when the systems are down and take some sections of pipe out so that we can look at them and say, you really can analyze them and say, do we expect these pipes to last another 30 years? There's nothing telling us right now that the pipes will not tell us that they will last another 30 years. That's what we expect to find. So the plan that you saw, that was the $8 million this year and then about 19 over the 2 years followed, but more importantly, the next year, didn't include replacing those pipes because we think
We're good.
we're good. We're gonna validate that we're good.
And if we're not, how much trouble are we in?
If we're not, then we start to look at this in a different way. I will tell you this. Please don't, for all the things the board's considering, don't lose sleep over this one. Because I think we're gonna be fine here. But we're gonna validate that we're okay. And we do this in lots of schools. And the reason we do is when they used to do Plan Con projects, the engineers would come in and say, we're replacing everything. 30 years are up, this is when you get your money, replace it all. We don't live in that world anymore where we're getting money every 30 years. So now we say, this stuff really lasts 60 years. We're gonna validate that it's still gonna last the next 30, and then we're gonna keep it. But please don't lose any sleep over this, because I don't think we're suffering here.
All
I
right,
think
because
we're
it's
gonna
already
validate.
gray. I can't
There's no better time to get a definitive answer.
That's
We
right.
want a definitive answer.
Yeah, and
I
we'll,
agree
and we'll
with
have
you.
that this summer.
That it is most likely that, because the systems are closed, you know, you're recirculating the same water over and over and over again. You're not introducing fresh water, which would then be, you know, water is the universal solvent, but you're not introducing fresh water. You're using the same, and in most cases, glycol. You're using it over, it's this, it may receive some fresh water, but very minimal amount of fresh water. You're using the same water and over again. So I would anticipate too that the pipes are in condition that will, I mean, 60 years is in some boiler cases, young. So, but nevertheless, it does need, we need the answer, and I was just trying to point out that we're not really gonna have a definitive answer until this summer. And then, you know, then we will know for sure as to whether or not we need to address anything with piping. But addressing the unit ventilators, and I believe is, it's really important. So I'd like to have a more grouped together look at what that's going to be building by building.
And when you say grouped, you're saying, so right now, when I look at this, it's got a building, and then it goes into the next building and does everything for that building. And you're saying kind of group, say, here's this system, these 3 line items pertain to this system and are probably done together for this building. Here they are for this building. So you kind of want to see like systems, but with building, is that?
Like if you take line 22 there, your buildings controls, and then unit ventilators, which line item is that?
Sorry, which page are you on?
I'm on page 6. So if you take line item 7 and line item 22 on page 6, those two, I would think, make a lot of sense to be done in conjunction with one another. But I don't know that you are getting an all-encompassing view of what doing line 7 and line 22 together are. Because A, you're missing potential carpets, and there may be other components connected to that in order for us to get a true view of what it would cost us to do line 7 and line 22 in Southern Middle School, I'd just like to have, I see those as, well, first of all, they're directly connected to one another. I mean, and I don't know that you also may say that line 19, your air handler unit replacement, is also connected to your building's controls. So, I mean, you may say, well, really, we would need to do all three of those together. Or could we do one, have the system up and ready, and then do the other? And I'd like to have solid answers as to whether or not they have to be done in conjunction, or if they can be done in phases. You do, one phase and then the next phase.
And to elaborate on exactly what you're saying, when basically what we're looking at is we're saying, there's a unit in the room and we're gonna replace it. We're gonna replace it with something with a better efficiency, et cetera. There's a unit on the roof that's serving that potentially, or that's also working in conjunction with that. If we are changing the size of one unit, it affects the size of the other unit if we're trying to be more efficient, et cetera. So they can, or we can look at them and potentially say, well, they're not quite as closely associated. Where you get into a situation where things are closely associated is the unit in the room or the unit on the roof has a control box on it. And I'm going to simplify it by saying controls. If we replace the unit, we take the controls off and we put them back on. Well, we're buying labor to take something off and put it back on. It is the most beneficial time then to put new controls on, because you're already buying the labor to take it off and put it back and make sure it works. Just buy the new controls because you're just buying the material then.
Well,
And that's part of, I think, what we're exploring, what makes sense and what doesn't, and how do they go together.
yeah, particularly with the controls example, some of our older controls, we can't buy parts for. We literally harvest and replace some of these parts because they're not accessible. We can't purchase them. So they're at their end of life, you know. We continue to maximize that when we can, but it makes sense to do that.
And what I'm trying to basically get at is, if you look at line 1, adding ADA parking area at the track, 5 spaces, clearly that has no connection with needing to do, units in the classroom to keep them heated and cooled. So what I'm trying to do is get a more specific understanding of classifications of things together, not just, sort of all of them on a sheet of paper at one fell swoop, but putting them together so that we can have a better understanding of if we are able to go at them in piecemeal fashion.
Yeah, and let me point out a couple things with these spreadsheets. Certainly, page 1, and it matches the presentation tonight, are the summary of costs. But I'd like to walk you down through, and most likely you've figured this out. The green in there are the projects this summer, including if we would elect to do the standing seam metal coatings and skylights. Those are also green. But at the bottom of each page, I want to point out to you, like the bottom of page 2, you'll see it says immediate and high priority scopes. So for those pages labeled that are immediate and high priority scopes. And then you go down to page 5, it's sorted by immediate scopes. And then on page 6, you get into the 3-year capital plan, which is what we outlined in the presentation as well. So on page 6 through page 8 are those projects. And then once you get to page 9, projects that are not included in a scenario. So as you can see from page 9 to 18, there's a lot of projects, that are not in a scenario yet, and, would be down the road to potentially complete. But, so just to kind of how you use this document. I know that's a lot. Other questions? Mr. Hall?
Okay, does anybody else have questions? See what we need to see? Okay. Thank you very much. And really, thank you, Site Logic, for all the hard work that you put into this.
Thank you.
We can get a very good handle on what we need to do going forward.
We'll work on that for next time.
All right, appreciate that very much. Okay, then moving on to 3.03, other items of business, which I have none. Moving on to 4, new business, which I also do not have any. Moving on to 5.01, adjournment of meeting. I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
So,
Take a vote.
any nays or abstentions on adjourning the meeting? Meeting adjourned.